Good afternoon. Welcome to everybody. My name is Bernard Kirk. I'm sitting in my kitchen in Ireland, and usually in Ireland we say Céad Míle Fáilte when we say it's 100,000 welcomes to people. I was just thinking a while ago when I see Sonia here that it took me a day to fly to Mozambique and a day to fly back last year for I think about 20 hours of a visit. And here I am sitting in my kitchen this year talking to Sonia, who's in Mozambique, and talking to Francis, who's in Ghana. And also delighted to talk to all of you who have joined us today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a topic, I think, which is close to all of our hearts. And I know from anyone who's involved with special needs, it's always been something that has triggered a lot of emotional reactions for people. And there's also people who join in conversations like this have a particular interest. So we're really, really delighted to have you here with us today. It's very important that you have any questions or have anything you want to ask us, please put it in the chat. Special thanks to Alice, who came up with the idea of this today. And I think it's really important from our point of view to have a discussion on special needs, and particularly how technology can help those who we are hoping to help and that we're trying to help. My own background is a teacher. I was a primary school teacher, and I was just thinking that when I was teaching, unfortunately, I now realize there were children in my class who were autistic, probably on the Asperger's spectrum, range of the spectrum. But at that stage, we didn't even have a language. We didn't even understand what Asperger's was. I know people who had to go to New Zealand 30 years ago to get a diagnosis because in the Northern Hemisphere, nobody knew what Asperger's was, or nobody even understood what that end of the spectrum of autism is. So I'm delighted to have two people who are really putting into action what our mission is, which is to leave no child behind, to engage with all young people, and particularly to engage through technology. So I'm going to ask each of them, I suppose, first of all, rather than me introducing, if they introduce themselves. And while they're doing that, I'm going to ask Sonia and Francis to probably just roll two questions into one. So one is, can you just give us a little introduction to yourself, please? Your involvement in Africa Code Week, and then how you became involved in the whole special needs area in Africa Code Week. So I'll start with Sonia, if that's okay.
Hi, my name is Sonia, and I'm the lead ambassador for Africa Code Week in Mozambique for the last, this is going to be our 5th edition. And the need for engage children with special needs is that we saw that we could take this tool to every kid and to every child, and we have a huge community of people with special needs that never has the chance to have a contact with technology, and Scratch being such an universal tool for young children, we thought it was a good idea, and we started 3 years ago, and we've been very successful, and we're very happy.
And we're delighted to have you here. And we'll dig a little deeper into the kind of work you're doing, Sonia, and the type of young people you're working with. Francis, could I turn to you? And again, our long-standing ambassadors, and I have to say both of you are fantastic ambassadors, as are all our ambassadors. And Francis, you're on mute, I think, so you might just let us give a little background to yourself, please, and how you then got involved in the special needs area. You're on mute, Francis. Can you unmute?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, great.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you very much, Bernard. And thank you for this opportunity as well. My name is Francis Ahene Afo. I am the country ambassador for Africa Code Week, having joined the initiative in 2016 through our collaboration with SAP, a team that came to do the social sabbatical with us, and then they introduced us to the Africa Code Week team. It's been an exciting and a great journey for us and for teachers. It's been a great eye-opener. It's been an exciting opportunity for us to meet teachers and young people, to introduce them to the world of coding using the Scratch language. So in 2016, when we launched this program, we got so much enthusiasm and excitement from the teachers because coding is virtually new to us in this part of the world. And that's how we joined this initiative. And we've been running it successfully in the last 5 years. It's been teachers look out for this initiative every year. Even before August, when we have run the train the trainer program, we get teachers hitting us and showing their interest to be part of the program. Now, in 2019, we asked ourselves, how do we ensure that everybody is included in this initiative? How do we promote digital inclusion to get everybody involved? Who has been left behind? Because for the world to develop and become a better place, we need to roll together. We need to get everybody along. And this includes children who are differently abled. So then that got us to connect with one of the most popular differently able schools in Accra called the Jolu Special School. And then we brought the initiative to their leaders, and they were equally excited about it. And so this is how we got connected with the Jolu Special School and started a coding program with the children or kids who are in residence in that school. So we had our first experience with them in 2019, and the experience is worth sharing. And I believe there'll be an opportunity to share more in-depth experience about our connection with that school and with the children.
Great, thank you, Francis. Sonia, can I just go back to you, because Francis outlined the kind of type of school that they've worked with, and I know you work with a specific type of child who's got a special need, and you might just explain a little more to us on that one, please.
On the first year, the opportunity we had was here in Maputo, and it was with hearing impaired children. We have a school that goes from the 1st grade to the 6th grade, and it has more or less 110 children. And we took technology, and namely Scratch and Africa Code Week for the first time. None of them had seen a computer, and our trainers never had the chance to work with hearing impaired children. And the way that we saw, besides the challenge that not being able to communicate, but we had a translator, which was one of the teachers. But after 10, 15 minutes, by teaching the children how to use a computer and seeing our beautiful cat meowing from one side to the other, the excitement was so much both for trainers and for children that it was a very rewarding experience. Last year, we had the chance to take it to a bigger one. We have a UNICEF-funded center for children with disability, which is actually a boarding school. And we work, besides hearing impaired children, we had children with disabilities, namely blind and people with mobility problems. And the way they reacted, and they were so happy that they were introduced for something completely new. And that gives us the joy and the strength to go further and take this universal tool as Scratch to more and more kids. And we hope to do it after this COVID thing passes, because this year, unfortunately, here in Mozambique, the schools are still closed until 12.
Thanks, Sonia. Sonia, maybe make a point there, because I can come back to you, Francis, because you mentioned the word residential, and Sonia, you mentioned boarding schools. So maybe talk a little bit about the residential aspect, Francis, because I'm thinking of young people who have a challenge in life, and then I'm presuming that being residential means that they have to leave their families to live in a kind of a school community.
So the Jolu Special School, the kids are brought in there and they spend greater part of their time in the boarding facility. So it's more, we call it their home. It's their home. They leave the school once in a year during Christmas to spend a short time, the Christmas with the families, and then they are brought back to the school. So a majority of their time is spent in the boarding house. They have their rooms, they have their beds. Everything they require to be in the home is provided for them. And for some of them, the parents come by to see them, but majority don't have family members visiting them. And that's the sad part of this whole experience, where they've been left in their wealth to survive on their own. For some of them, they've never seen their relatives ever since they were brought to the home. Some of them get visits every now and then, but a chunk of the time is spent in the school, in the boarding facility. And the other kids are their families throughout the rest of the year, except those few days that they leave the boarding facility to be with their families. And even that, it is not all the children who leave the facility. Some of them don't have homes anymore. So some of them spend permanent lives in the hostel or in the boarding house. They never live to any home. Of course, some of them do also go home because they have families that take care of them, or that depends. I mean, that still takes care of them. Yeah.
Sure. And I'm just thinking, I mean, in a way, this is where technology could even help that. You know, if their families are in a Wi-Fi abled area, then there's no reason why they can't actually have some communication during the year if the whole IT structure is set up for them. But that's a kind of a different thought that just comes to me. Sonia, you're nodding your head there. Again, it's similar where you were talking about. I mean, I presume then the excitement of someone coming in from outside really lifts the young people and makes a difference.
It does make a huge difference. Seeing different people, teaching them different things from the day-to-day life that they used to do. Because what happens, I think it's not even in Mozambique, it's in several African countries, as that we have the donors and we have the projects, but then the day-to-day routine is that they have the infrastructure. For example, they had the braille machine, and then couldn't afford the paper to print whatever they and the braille. So then they have to manage, because instead of they have an infrastructure for 100 and they have like almost 200 in that facility. And the children, that they have to provide children with clothes and with everything, which the budget is not enough. And they don't have an IT teacher, although they have 20 computers there. So we have to manage all of this. So the IT thing on that second year in which they had all the disabilities, it was almost new, because although they have the computers there, which doesn't happen here, we don't have computers in school. Very few schools have computers here in Maputo. And our children here in the special needs school doesn't have the computers. We're gonna give them 2 computers this year. They're old ones and they're ours, but at least for them to be able to practice on the desktops, because they're always so happy doing that we're going to do that this year. But the problem in those centers is that they have the infrastructure, but then they don't have the IT teacher, or they don't have the funds to have the internet, or that's the struggle. But it was very rewarding, because they were all so happy. We in there we trained 200 teachers and 200 children and PC teachers, and it was a joy. For 3 days, it was a joy for us and for them.
It's interesting, because I'm hearing words you're using: rewarding and a joy, and I can see on your expression, thinking back on it. And obviously it's the same for the children. And Francis, I mean, listening to Sonia there, we're talking about like every challenge you could have. We're talking about Wi-Fi infrastructure. We're talking about lack of computers. We're talking about, you know, teacher skills. And yet, you know, something is achieved it's a breakthrough, it's a small start. I know that you, Francis, from memory, I think it's like Down syndrome and what we would describe as autistic children who have severe challenges in lots of cases that you've been working with. Do you find the same sense of joy and reward? And if you do,
I mean, the challenge that Sonia mentioned, it's. I mean, when we had this discussion, I see Sonia lives in Ghana, and because every challenge that Sonia talked about is exactly the same challenge that we face in Ghana. you are dealing with, I mean, you might go into their computer lab and see 20 computers, but you might end up seeing only 5 working. The other 15 might not be working. So it's been quite challenging. And yes, the children in the Jolo Special Home have Down syndrome and they are autistic. They cannot think for themselves. They cannot do anything on their own. But the joy in what we introduced to them was the fact that they were able to put codes together. So even with the challenge that they have, that they cannot sit in a classroom like any other child, there is something that we realize that when we introduce to them, they will be able to do, just like any other child on the street. They might be slower in doing it, but they are still able to put codes together. They were still able to construct or put codes together for their sprite or their animated cartoon to move or to do something. So for us, though we found there was a challenge in their learning to code, with time and with patience, they were still able to do it with ease. And that was the joy, that was what even motivated us to think of how do we scale up on this program to get it to other schools who have similar challenges like them.
Okay, great. You've talked about planning and time there. If we go back to Sonia, from a practical point of view, from your experience, if you were giving advice to people, what type of advice would you give to somebody who's going in to work in a school similar to the situations you have been in?
I think I'll go with Francis. Is if you have an open mind and if you have the patience, technology and other tools. And I was having a brainstorm with my team yesterday, and we were talking about the challenge and how technology be a bridge for the ability gap. And some of them are Google developers and app developers. And what they said that I didn't have that idea is when you're developing an app now, you have tools to make those tools available for people with special needs, either is autism or is hearing impaired or being blind. I'm sorry for the not as politically correct word. You already have tools to make technology available for people with special needs, depending on the special need each one of them have. So I think those tools have to be more and more used to make it available for everybody, and for our motto, which is leave no child behind.
Yeah, thank you, Sonia. One of the things I suppose is key to that, if we go back to Francis or Sonia want to come in, are the teachers. So what has been the reaction of the teachers when you go in, or have teachers been open to being supported? How does it work for you?
For me, it was amazing. We have almost our ambassador teachers in the hearing, the special needs school for deaf children, and they got so engaged that we have a couple of them. One is the one I love to use as a translator, that I think she could be the best actress in Hollywood, because her facial expressions are just so involving that even if you don't understand sign language, you can follow her. She's amazing. And then there's one teacher that's also deaf, but that he loves the tool so much that he actually does workshops for the children during the year. He takes his own computer because he was so in love with the tool. As far as this first one that we did in 2018, on the other one, we didn't have an IT teacher, but they loved it. One of them came up with the idea of how can he do a scratch game to use it in a football game.
Oh wow! Okay.
So they're already thinking how to use that tool to use in their other classes. That's not IT. So the reception is wonderful.
Great. And Francis, in Ghana, support of the teachers, involvement with the teachers, how have you found it?
So and just the same model as Africa Code Week, we first of all went in and trained their teachers, because the point is that these kids know how to connect with their teachers than us, than our team. So we got our master trainers to go in there and train the teachers. So we organized a special trainer session for the teachers who handle these differently able children. So that during Africa Code Week, they will take 10 and then train them. And that's what we did. And the teachers were very receptive to it as well, because for them, it was a different kind of training. They've never experienced anything like this before. I mean, because the kids are differently able, they are taught other things. They do more TVETs. So they are taught how to do beads making, craft, drawing, painting, hairdressing, sewing. These are the basic things, quilting, quilt. So we brought in the Scratch program or coding, they accepted it, and they loved it themselves. And that is why they knew that because of the way they enjoyed it, they definitely knew their kids were also going to enjoy it just like them. So for us, it was, we first engaged the teachers, empowered their teachers, who subsequently also empowered the children who are differently abled. And it worked magic, because they know them, they understand them, they were able to connect with them, and they were able to transfer the knowledge acquired to their pupils. So it worked perfectly at the end of the day.
Brilliant. Francis, I know you mentioned, we were just chatting before, you mentioned about a new program that you're beginning to look at from an employment point of view, because again, what you mentioned there are all skills, and like we were saying with Sonia as well, these are skills that young people need. And so, you know, obviously digital is a new skill, but you also mentioned something I think that was interesting. You might like to talk to that about your plans.
Well, we also believe in empowering these children who are differently able to be part of the digital ecosystem. So in line with our plan to continuously engage them, we have a model where every year a child or two will leave the home to come and do their internship with us. So for about 2 months, they will intern with us, connect with us, work with us, just see how we work. And then we will give them some tasks to also work on. And we believe that this is another way of engaging them. This is another way of making them part of the growing digital ecosystem, that you don't just run them a training program and you leave them in their comfort zone, but you also get them out of their comfort zone to connect with some institutions that they can go work with. So Dream of Valley is going to start this initiative. Unfortunately, COVID changed the plan. So it was going to happen this year, where we're going to get about 2 children from the home to work with us. Now, our model and our plan was also connect with other organizations in Ghana to take at least 1 child. So let's say we have about 10 organizations taking 1 child to do internship. I believe that we will promote digital inclusion within our community, within our business community, to get some of these children engaged. Of course, we don't expect 100% performance from them, but their contribution will be worth sharing with the rest of the world. So that was our model. Get them to come and intern with us, learn some of our business models, learn how the engineers also work, and also so they understand how coding is practiced in the real world. Great.
When you say with us, Francis, can I just dig a little deeper into that one? So what kind of work would you anticipate you might be able to, and I'm talking about work inverted commas. I mean, this is really getting people familiar with the workplace. What kind of jobs had you in mind, or, you know, just for the audience who are listening?
Okay, so Dream of Valley Limited we're primarily a software company. We do a lot of coding at the high level. So the idea was to bring some of the children in to do basic coding, supporting the engineering team. They will not be able to do the top level coding, but the team was going to work with them, give them basic, simple assignments in coding, so they understand how they can apply coding to the real world. So that's how we wanted to engage them. Attach them to the engineering department so they understudy some of the software engineers to learn how they do their work, learn how they code, and then they can also pick nuggets from them. So that was how we're going to run this, get them to work in the engineering department and within Dream of Valley Limited.
And that's fantastic, because I think what you're saying there is that this is not getting someone to do photocopying or clean the bins. You're actually giving them an opportunity to practice a skill. But on the other side, and I think I mentioned that the other day, SAP have been fantastic at this because they have a program with Specialist Learn. And I know at the moment, I was watching one of the webinars last week, about engagement of people with special needs in autism, particularly in the workplace. And part of, like you're talking about, we discussed, I think previously, was the need for the company to actually mentor the people they're going to work with, who the special needs children are going to work with, or young youth are going to work with, because that actually is our benefit to the team as much as it is our benefit to the young people. So that's really, really fascinating, and hopefully it'll work and it'll be rewarding for you. Sonia, I just want to go back to one of the things, because again, looking on the high level and making a change is, and I think this has come up quite common again, is that we need departments of education to recognize that investment in special needs is actually something that's of value, and that's something that shouldn't be dismissed, because I think too often special needs schools and special needs children are at the bottom of the pile. And I know last year when I visited you, one of the important things which you had arranged with the Irish Embassy was that we went to meet the Department of Education and their special needs section particularly. And I thought the value of that was, from an Africa COVI point of view, that we were able to access the special needs departments in the Department of Education because we were actually, or you were, doing something on the ground. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, how to bring about perhaps change, how we can do that as a team?
There's two sides to that story. So the international guidelines say we have to have inclusive education. So we don't have to have special needs schools or schools for children with special needs. We have to have an inclusive education. I'll say that meaning that people with several types of disabilities should go to a school and be integrated. Like the whole purpose is to be integrated in the workplace, like with all other people. So, but for that to happen, the teachers have to have special skills to be able to teach the children, either it is autism, either it is children with hearing impaired disabilities. So what actually happens here is that they're ending with a special needs school. So after this school of sixth grade, they get into the schools for like from the sixth grade to the 12th grade, where they have all types of it's just like the normal school. And what I actually saw happening with a group of 6 children that went from that special needs school with hearing impaired children, they were a group of 6, and they went to the school from the 6th to the 12th grade. But as the teachers don't have the skills as sign language, and I talk about more about children with hearing problems because I'm more involved with those, is that they get to the classroom and then they don't understand because the teachers don't have the skills to communicate with them. So that's a problem. I totally agree with being an inclusive education, because if they're gonna go to a workplace which they have to be treated equally, but still they need some type of treatment or some type of tools in which they can accompany the whole learning process as other children do. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, I mean you did, because you've given an outline. Can I come back, Francis? Because just picking up on the point Sonia made there, I think again is that emphasis on supporting teachers. And you mentioned that earlier, which is going into work with teachers. Was there anything particular, totally different that you did when you worked with the teachers in the special needs schools?
No, not really. I mean, because the teachers, we didn't have any, I mean, of course, they don't have any challenge. It was the training that we offered to mainstream teachers was the same training that we gave them, because we're virtually using the same platform. So it wasn't anything special that we had with them, but it was the same model we used to train our mainstream teachers. Was the same concept and model that we use. Skill basic scratch that was introduced to them, and it worked. It worked perfectly. I mean, they all understood it just like any other, because they were, of course, they were able teachers without any issues. So we didn't have any main challenge working with them. It was a smooth training with them, and then they subsequently transferred that knowledge to the differently abled children.
Yeah, because again, I was involved in teacher training for many years, and that would have been one of the challenges, was the perception that you had to do something very complicated or very different when you're working with special needs teachers. But just as you explained there, you don't. It's the same, and a little bit like the person in the wheelchair, where adults often talk to the person pushing the wheelchair. You know, people actually think sometimes the special needs teachers are not really teachers, or are not as same teachers as or teachers in the mainstream. So I think what you're saying there, Sonia, I see you're going to say something on that.
No, they're the same type of teachers are teachers, and if you engage the teachers in the training that we're doing, it's like any other matter or any other subject. If you can engage the teachers, then they will deliver the message and the content of what they learn. To, I think the secret is to engage the teachers in Scratch and in the tool that we're giving them, in the training that we're giving them. If they like it, they will adapt it to their children, as they do in all type of children. They have to create the magic to their. It doesn't matter if it's Scratch or math or geography. They have to create the magic to engage the children.
But I need to add that for the ones we did with the teachers, we needed to do the basic form of Scratch.
Yeah.
The basic, because they cannot learn as fast as other kids. And this is why we call them differently abled. So as much as possible, we took our time. The training we had with them, we had a 2-day training. Usually we have a 2-hour training with our teachers, but for them we had a 2-day training because we wanted to give them the basic model of coding. They needed to understand the simplest way of coding so they can teach their children. And that was a strategy. So there was a slight difference between what we were teaching our regular teachers and the teachers who handle these kids with who are differently abled. For them, we took our time and took them to the basic form of Scratch. And it took us 2 days to do that. And then after the second day, they were able to they understood it well, because they were also going to have the next task of transferring that knowledge acquired to the children who are differently abled.
Yeah, and it's that transfer of knowledge, creating that magic that makes the difference for the children. And I think also what we're saying here is that with not a lot of extra effort, you can create a lot of joy. Going back to that word that was used by Sonia, you can create a lot of happiness, like you mentioned, Francis. You can create a lot of excitement, but also you can make a big difference. So I think that's kind of the theme that's coming out of here. I'm just looking to see, is there anyone in the chat? Have you any questions that we need coming through the chat? I don't see any. If there is, if people want to join in. Is there anything else you want to add on, Sonia? Because I'm conscious we're in our last probably 5-10 minutes or so. Or Francis, anything you want to?
Well, to say what Francis said the other day when we were chatting about this, it's just, for us, it's so rewarding to see how after the training, when we go to those special needs schools, how they come to us and see their joy, especially on the first year, last year, 2018, the first year that we did this. See how happy they are. And after 5 minutes of never seeing a computer or a mouse or anything in front of them, and after 10 minutes, they're making and the cat going from life to it's just amazing, and they're so happy, and the reward that we have from seeing that the concept of normal is just whatever normal means, because they're just so able to work with Scratch, and that's the good part that we were talking about the other day about Scratch being such an universal tool for children.
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
that it is so easy for them to use Scratch and to develop it. It's and that's the greatest thing about the tool that SAP developed and that we've been using for 5 years.
Yeah. The great thing about Scratch is that it allows communication. Francis, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, for us as well, I mean, just as Sonia has indicated, our motivation and why we want to scale up and expand the program was the joy after the training.
Absolutely.
They're fun, they were excited. Some of them didn't want to leave the machine, they wanted to continue coding because for them it was a different kind of learning for them. And the fact that they were able to embrace it, they were able to do it on their own. This was what motivated us to engage the Ministry of Social Welfare to find out how we can connect a lot more schools like the Jolo Special Home to learn coding. And our plan and our strategy is to get them to introduce coding as part of the school system, as part of their curriculum. So aside they going to classroom to learn, they can also go to the computer lab and also learn how to code. So this is what is driving us to engage government, to say, let's work together. And I believe for initiatives like this to thrive, we need to work in collaboration with other organizations, the government, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Gender and Social Protection. We need to work together collaboratively to know that we are working towards the same agenda. We're working to improve the standard of these children. We don't want them to feel neglected. We don't want them to feel rejected. We want them to feel a part of the digital ecosystem. And the only way we can achieve that is by working closely together, where we work in partnership with them so we can together develop the minds of these children, because out of them we can change the mindset around these special homes to let people and the society understand that no, they are worse than being locked up in a place like or being left in a school like that. They can do something. They are able to do something when given the opportunity. So the whole idea is that let's work together and give these children the opportunity, and you'll be able to do something in their own small way.
I love what you're saying there, Francis, and it's the theme of let's work together. And the fact I see someone in the chat had a question there looking for just giving your details, Sonia, because it's someone who's planning to work with children with hearing impairment. So on the basis of let's all work together, Sonia, have you anything to add to that? Because
no, I think it's
Francis
let's work,
covered a lot.
engage public and private sector as much as we can. First, to have the tools, which is I think in Mozambique, but I think it's all around the African continent, is that we don't have the tools in schools. Whatever types of schools, and then introduce it to the countries which still don't have introduced the coding into the normal curricula. That would be that is exactly the goal that we're striving for.
Fantastic. I'm going to wrap because and finish up, because I think we've covered a lot of areas we hadn't expected to. I think for me, I'm thinking of the fact that, as you mentioned, let's all do this together, because it's like SDG 17, where we talk about partnership. And I think the key thing is that both of you, Sonia and Francis, have proved by making small starts, by planning and going and doing something, you now have the credibility to talk to governments. You now have the credibility to talk to ministries. And they're the people who can make the decisions that will improve all of these young people's lives. And it may not be this generation of young people, but it could be the next generation. And as you said, we don't want to see anyone left behind. So I think what we're taking from today, and I think that's why it was great to have both of you, is positivity. You know, so many people come up with 50 reasons why you can't do that. You both have experienced those probably 52 reasons, 53 reasons, even more than 50, that why you couldn't do it. And people probably said it couldn't be done. And yet both of you have proved in very different situations, in huge challenges in both your areas, particularly Mozambique, but it's achievable, and that you can make a difference for the next generation. And that Africa Code Week has, I suppose, brought about something we never planned for, that we have people like yourselves as ambassadors who can inspire others, who can make a difference in your own country, and that makes a difference on a continent. So can I say from my own heart and from probably all of those who have been listening in today, I want to say mila mila buekas, which in Irish means 1,000 thanks. I'm not sure the multiplication, it may be a million, but I'm not sure. To both of you, first of all, for leading and showing leadership and going in and actually doing practical work. Secondly, for coming up with such innovative ideas that you have come up with. And, you know, I love the idea, Francis, of what you're planning to do there with the internship in the future. And finally, to thank SAP, who have a strong commitment and also have had a strong commitment to working with people who are differently abled, and see that not as a challenge, but as actually a source of great creativity. So thanks to everyone who joined us. Special thanks to Alice for putting this together today, for thinking of it, because I think both of you have inspired Francis and Sonia, lots of others, and I can see that in the chat, to take on challenges that otherwise wouldn't be taken on. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. If you have any questions to follow on, please follow on. We would be delighted to answer them. And certainly if you have any questions in relation to special needs, you can see we have people here who have vast experience, are really prepared to share. And it's been a pleasure, a great honor and a privilege to speak with both of you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.